my way to work, and I was drinking coffee throughout my whole morning. And then around like noontime, I was working, and I was really shaky, and I felt like I was really unable to work. I couldn't really understand why I was really feeling that way, and then later I found out it was all because of coffee. And then as college students, most of us consume coffee every single day. So today I'd like to share with you the history of caffeine, how the body processes it, and the possible side effects from caffeine. But before I go into that, I'd like to give you a little bit of background of caffeine. So caffeine is found in more than 60 different plants around the world, including tea leaves, cocoa beans, and obviously coffee beans. Right here, this is the tea leaves. So the process for that, they begin picking them one by one. After that, they go through like a withering process. So they just sit there for a couple hours so the moisture can remove the moisture. And then after that, they go through a process, the rolling process, which is they are cut up by a machine. After that process, it's the oxidizing process, so they just sit there and they undergo chemical processes where they naturally break down. After that, they go through the drying process, and they sit there for a couple more hours just to dry before packaging, and then that's how the tea is made. And then right here, these are the cocoa beans. So this is what the nut looks like, and then inside are all the little cocoa beans. And then right here we have just the regular coffee beans. There are 3 different types of coffee roast, blonde, medium, and dark roast. Blonde being the strongest, dark being the lightest. So this is the blonde right here, the first 2, then the medium in the middle, and then the dark roast right here. And then this right here, this is the wild coffee bean plant that was originated in Ethiopia. And they start off green, growing, and then once they're red, they're ready to be picked. And then inside, there's little coffee beans inside. So now that you know where caffeine came from, let's look at how the body processes it. So caffeine is known to boost the effects of neurotransmitters such as dopamine. For example, dopamine is known to affect the concentration, and it's also responsible for signaling when it's time to go to bed. But once caffeine is introduced into the body, those signals are actually blocked. So right here, this is what it looks like to have no caffeine in your body. So you have like all your receptors, enzymes, and the neurotransmitters being able to go back and forth. And then right here, this is when caffeine is introduced into the body. And then you have a little red signaling that it stops from all of those from going back and forth. So caffeine causes your body to release more adrenaline, which causes fast heartbeats, and then more blood pressure being pumped into your organs and muscles, and it tells your liver to produce more sugar. So now moving along to side effects. According to the article, Selected Health and Behavioral Effects Related to the Use of Caffeine, published in the Journal of Community Health, over 80% of adults consume caffeine daily in the form of coffee, tea, or any soft drinks. So since we consume caffeine daily, it's really important to kind of minimize how much we take in and pay attention to like how much we consume. So J.J. Barone, author of Caffeine Consumption, which was published in the Book of Food Chemical Toxicology, states that people should only consume 5 ounces of ground coffee, tea, and then 6 ounces of any soft drink. So for a lot of people, this is the 5-ounce coffee or tea. And so for a lot of people, this isn't enough to feel the energizing side effect. So that can lead to overconsumption. So Barone discusses the many side effects, including insomnia. So it's difficulty falling asleep, resulting in daytime drowsiness. You also feel nervousness, restlessness, so you're really grouchy during the whole day. You have like a really short temper. It also causes dizziness, nausea, obviously fast heartbeats, muscle stiffness. And then now caffeine is served with a cancer warning because of the carcinogenic byproduct for the process of how the beans are being roasted. And then, so today we've learned where caffeine was originated, how it affects the body, and possible side effects. Thank you.
All right, George, what did you think?
I thought it was interesting that her personal story, that's because of what she went through, she decided to research why she was feeling that way, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And I also like the fact that caffeine, that her topic was relatable to everybody, or at least a lot of people. And I noticed that she did keep a lot of eye contact, and she was loud enough to hear, and overall, I think it was pretty good.
All right. Well, let me start off with disagreeing with George about a couple of things. I think you need to look at us a little bit more. You have those big pages in your hand. They're not really cards. It's like you've got a half page on each one of your notes, and you have a tendency to look down at them quite a bit. And because they're so big, they occupy your hands a lot also. So I think you free yourself a little bit more. That'll be better. And for most of the speech, you were fine on the volume, but at the beginning of the speech, I think you need to have a little bit more volume because you're trying to get the audience's attention, and you have kind of a soft voice, and so you may have to project a little bit more at the beginning, give people a chance to get used to how soft your voice is, and then you can drop down to something that's a little bit normal. That's delivery stuff. That's not a big part of what we're doing, but it's something that, since he mentioned it, I'm going to take the opportunity to piggyback on it, on those things. The topic, I think, is clearly identified. I agree with him. I like the personal story as an attention device. I do think you needed to have a smoother transition between, and this whole thing happened because of the coffee. And the next thing you know, you're talking about caffeine. And I know why there's caffeine in the coffee, but the way you transition from your attention device to the topic that you're talking about felt like they were not connected, and there needs to be a smoother language transition that's going on there. Transitions are the biggest thing that I think are problematic in your speech. You have a tendency, I think I used this example before, you've got the mechanics down. I can see that you're going through all the stages. Did we talk about the analogy to learning to drive in class? Didn't I use that as an example? Yeah, the smog thing. I can see that you're doing all the stuff that technically we told you to do. Here's the purpose statement, here's the preview, here's point 1, point 2, point 3, but it's very mechanical at this point, and you need to develop a little bit of skill in getting from one idea to the next. So it's clear that you are moving from one point to the next, but you want to make that transition flow more smoothly, and you need some language or a story or something to get you from one idea to another, because it just feels like it's suddenly you're shifting gears and switching over to something else. So that's something that I noticed throughout the speech, and when you develop that a little bit more, it will sound like a more complete presentation. there's good information in the speech, although there are a couple of places that you go off on tangents that I thought were problematic. Why am I listening to the whole process of harvesting tea? That's not really what you're talking about. The fact that tea has caffeine in it, that's what you're focusing on. And, you know, it would be more interesting and appropriate for your topic, for instance, to have a comparison about what the caffeine volume is in a cup of tea versus a cup of coffee versus a soda, than all the stuff about here's how they grow the tea and harvest the tea and cut up the tea and distribute the tea. That's got nothing to do with your topic, all of that stuff. And so when you go through that process, even though you've got that nice little cycle in the visual there, it doesn't have anything to do with what you're really talking about, and it feels like you're going off on a tangent on that particular point. So I'd suggest that instead of letting, and this was especially true in the first section of the speech, the whole first section of the speech, it felt like you were narrating the slides. Instead of using the slides to explain the subject, you had the slides and you're just saying, and here's what's in this slide, and here's what's in this slide, and here's what's in this slide. The images are supposed to help you talk about the subject, not be the subject that you're talking about. I thought you were better on that in the second and the third points, and the materials that you used there were integrated a little bit more appropriately for what you're talking about there. I didn't hear a lot of references in the first section of the speech, but when you got to that third section of the speech, there were several citations that you presented to give your credibility to what you were talking about. I do think that there are a couple of places where you could use some stories to make it interesting, like your personal story at the beginning. People who have difficulty sleeping, for instance, there's got to be a story about that, and probably in one of the articles that you read to get that information. So maybe, you know, tell us a story in that section too, to make it a little bit less like it's just here's a data dump. There's also kind of an explanation that's going on with it there. I could not see where you were talking about the nerve receptors operating, and you know you had the one image without the caffeine and one with the caffeine. I think there are little red dots that you made reference to. I couldn't really see them, and I'm not exactly sure that explanation helped very much. You know, that the nerve receptors are not doing something in particular, and here's a visualization of what they're not doing when the caffeine's there. I need a little bit more explanation of that. This one of those places where I think you're kind of trying to rely on the visual to explain it, and it doesn't explain it quite as well as I think you think it does. So that's a little bit of a problem. So the mechanical stuff you've got right. You're doing the right steps in the process, and I can hear information. I think I like some of the slides that you have in the presentation, but there are some that take you off on tangents, and you really need to work on the transitions in your presentation. All right, thank you.